Welcome to Guidance Review. This is David Pudwill, and today we're going to be going through a recent guidance document, product recalls, including removals and corrections from March 2020. There are just a couple things that I'd like you to take away from today's video, and those things are, one, what recall information is submitted to FDA, so what is required in that document package that you're going to have to submit to FDA. Number two, what recall information is sent to your consignees, that would be your end users or your customers, and also what information is used to evaluate the recall, the effectiveness, and also to close out the recall with FDA. So without much further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. We'll see here that this document has been issued for immediate implementation, and you can still submit electronic comments here at www.regulations.gov. So if we go check that out, we'll see here that there were 4 comments received, and there's not a whole lot of information here, but we do see that this is effectively an update on information that was posted back in 2003. So if we go ahead and get back into the guidance document here, for questions, again, you have a contact, and we can see here that this particular guidance document affects a broad number of centers because of the fact that this is a product recall guidance, which could impact medical devices, drugs, biologics, etc. So here we'll see in the table of contents, here is the information, again, that I'm looking for you to take away from today's video. These Roman numerals 2, 3, and 4. And we get in here to the introduction. And FDA's written this preamble to lay out for you the fact that this guidance is intended to assist members of industry, so that would be you and me, in handling most aspects of a product recall. It's fairly comprehensive, and they've also identified that this may be helpful for some removals and corrections that don't meet the definition of a recall under 21 CFR 7.3. So there's a checklist as well as information that FDA is going to use to evaluate, classify, and monitor and audit product recalls, various statutory provisions and regulations, authorize FDA to require recalls of certain products, and there's also some general guidance for voluntary recall of products here in 21 CFR 7.4 through 59, I should say. So this guidance provides some more specific recommendations, as we'll see, and let's go ahead and move into the body of this. And again, here's where FDA is talking through the different types of products that might be impacted. And this is an important statement, that FDA believes that expediting recall activities is vital. And that's very much true to how they operate when it comes to this specific area. And here you can go ahead and pull up this particular link if you want to find your recall coordinator. Okay, so that would be this DRC reference. So this is a very helpful link as well if you want to go ahead and find who it is that you should be communicating with about product recalls. And this information does get updated. It doesn't necessarily change all that often, but as people join and leave FDA, this information does stay fairly well up to date. So if we move into the recall information that you're going to have to submit to FDA for any recall, FDA is going to look for a couple key pieces of information, primarily here product information. FDA recommends that you provide the product name, the product catalog or product ordering numbers, a product image, a description of that product, and there's some more detail about what that description should include, as well as intended use or indications for use. Also, details about shelf life and type of packaging. Here, FDA highlights that they want 2 complete sets of all labeling. In general, recently, whenever I've provided any of this kind of information to FDA, it's electronic, so I don't know that 2 complete sets of all labeling is still the most relevant kind of recommendation for industry. But if you're providing this information physically to FDA, definitely 2 complete sets of labeling. You could include different types of labels, or you could include 2 duplicate copies in a PDF document or something if you want it. So, and here, for what FDA wants to see for labeling, they identify exactly what they mean by that. So this could be product labeling, individual package labeling, case label, package inserts, etc. So here for drugs, we're also going to see some additional information that FDA is going to want to see for the NDA, the NDC, whether the drug is prescription or OTC. FDA is going to want to see the strength, route of administration, and any other detail here. So additionally, and this is more relevant for us and what we're looking at today, for medical devices, 510K, IDE, PMA numbers, and specifying whether the medical device is for human and or animal use. Here's some additional information that's useful. Some links are provided in some of the other things that we'll take a look at here in terms of CFR 1003 and 1004. And then FDA is also going to want to see codes. So this is going to be the lot and unit numbers and some other details in terms of how it is that you create your lot numbers. How are these configured? What does this mean in terms of how you identify maybe years and months in that lot number, if you include that. And also, FDA is going to want to see, again, some expiry date or use by expected shelf life of the product, and serial numbers, UDI, if applicable, product codes. And then FDA is going to want to see some information about the recalling firm. And this is laid out here, the address, the type, that could be manufacturer, importer, distributor, etc., contacts for the recalling firm, and this detail here that they're asking for, as well as, so here we can see that FDA is going to ask for your manufacturer as well as the firm responsible. So in some cases, these might be different. So just clarify if those are the same. You could have a situation where you'd have a third-party manufacturer that is not the firm responsible. So FDA wants both sets of information. And FDA is also going to want to see the reason for the recall. So the date the firm made the decision to conduct a recall, the explanation in detail about how the product is violative, and explain how that violation affects the performance and safety of the product. And here they identify the health hazard assessment that they're going to want to see. So also here, if the recall is due to the presence of a foreign object, they want to know details about the size, composition, hardness, sharpness. And if the recall is due to the presence of a chemical contaminant, they're going to want some other information on that here. And then furthermore, if the recall is due to a failure of the product to meet product specifications, they're going to want to see test results. If the recall is due to the presence of a pathogen, they're going to want to see testing. If they ask for it specifically, they're expecting that you're going to give that to them, and you could head off some of these questions if you provide more information up front. So just be conscientious of that. So even if some information isn't absolutely necessary in the initial correspondence with FDA, FDA may be following up. If there is anything missing, they'll be following up to get more detail from you. And it's oftentimes best, if you know that FDA is going to want to see something, go ahead and provide that up front. It saves you more of this back and forth. And if the recall is due to a label issue, so this can happen where either you have put the wrong label on the right product, or you've put the wrong product in a package with the right label. Both of those kinds of things can and do happen. Then you're going to want to lay out to FDA exactly what was going on here. It might be, as we'll talk about in a little bit, it might be a partial lot that was impacted by a mislabeling situation. And FDA is going to want to know they're going to want to understand how the problem occurred, the dates that it occurred, how the problem was discovered, the date that it was discovered, and if the problem affects all units subject to the recall or just a portion of the units, and also explain why this problem only affects those products or lots subject to the recall. So FDA is also going to want to see some detailed information on the complaints associated with the product problem, and as well as any adverse events if you happen to have had them, the dates of those complaints, the number, the description of complaints, lot and serial numbers involved, and any MDRs associated with these issues. And also here, if a state agency is involved, identify that agency or contact. And for drug recalls, they'll want a little bit more information here as well. So in terms of the health hazard assessment, FDA is going to want to understand what it is that you have evaluated here. And they want to see the volume of recalled product, the total quantity for the recall, the dates produced, quantity distributed, dates distributed, the quantity held by recalling firm and its distribution centers, how the product is being quarantined, if the product is readily available, an estimate of the amount of affected product remaining in the marketplace for the following direct counts or consignees. So that would be at the wholesale, distributor, retail, pharmacy, consumer, or user level. And FDA is going to want to see the status or disposition of the marketed product if known. So is that going to be destroyed, reworked, etc.? FDA is also going to want to see detail here about the distribution pattern. How does this product make its way to end users? And FDA is also going to want to see the areas of distribution, including foreign countries. Usually this is maybe a list of states and a list of OUS jurisdictions where product was distributed. And they're going to want to get a direct account list, so a consignee list, which includes, at a minimum, the ship to address, and ideally includes some additional information here. And FDA wants to understand what that list represents. So is this all of the customers who were shipped product, all of the customers who were sold product? Those may be slightly different lists. And FDA also wants to understand, FDA wants you to understand, I should say, that you have to maintain distribution record keeping in most cases. So if you don't have this information, you're going to be in a rough spot. Okay, so this is reiteration that this is the kind of information that you should be keeping, and subject to FDA's oversight and applicable regulations. Okay, so FDA also wants to know whether product was sold under a government contract. It could be VA programs, etc. And was the product sold to any federal, state, or local agency, or involved in a school lunch program. So this is going to mostly apply to food, for instance. And in addition, FDA recommends that you notify both the ship to and bill to customers of any recall, so that the ship to customers can retrieve the product from their location, and the bill to customers can initiate a sub-recall if applicable. And then in terms of recall strategy, FDA is going to want to see here the level in the distribution chain to which you intend to extend the recall. And if your recall only extends to the wholesale distributor level, then FDA wants to see a rationale for not recalling to the retail pharmacy or end user level. They want to know the scope of the recall, the strategy for expanding the recall if needed, method for communication. They recommend written communication. And when your customers of the lots can be quickly determined, they want you to do a directed communication only to those customers. So FDA does not want you to indiscriminately send notifications to all customers. While this may be simpler, in practice, this tends to be more expensive, and FDA is concerned about desensitizing customers to recall notices. So if that initial communication is made by a phone, FDA wants to see the phone script. And if you have a website, FDA wants you to post the recall communication there or consider that. But FDA does not consider this to be the sole means of customer notification. And FDA wants you to include here what you've instructed customers to do with a recalled product. Have you asked them to return it? Have you asked them to destroy it themselves? Are you notifying them that you're looking to do some kind of a field correction? And FDA also wants you to identify a recall contact for each customer and address recall communications to those contacts to reduce the potential for the communication letter getting misdirected. And then if the product should be returned or refunded or replaced, they want to see the mechanics of that. And they also want to understand, and this we see coming up quite a bit, but this is a long-standing concern, that FDA is concerned about market shortages. And in instances where you believe there may be a market shortage, it's worth a communication with FDA. And then they're going to want to see this in writing, but I would suggest even as a recall may be initiated, FDA is going to want to know early about potential market shortage issues, especially for critical products. And then FDA wants to understand how it is that you're going to ensure the effectiveness of your recall. What's your strategy there? And furthermore, they want to see the additional steps you're going to take to notify non-responsive customers. Is that a follow-up written communication? Is that a phone call? What does that look like? And FDA is also going to want to understand how you handle out-of-business customers, and also how it is that you propose to destroy recalled product, if that's applicable. And they also want to understand if that product can be reconditioned, explain how that reconditioning is going to take place. And furthermore, FDA recommends that you contact your FDA field office contact. It's the recall coordinator prior to product destruction. So FDA in some cases may want to witness that destruction. In the current crisis that we're dealing with, I don't anticipate much of this happening, but you want to invite FDA to witness destruction, and they may take you up on it. And FDA expects that you're going to keep adequate documentation on that destruction, and also regarding field corrections, there's some further information here if that's applicable for you. And before releasing reconditioned goods, FDA also wants you to be contacting them. So in terms of the recall notice, what does that recall notice itself look like? So there's a guidance here on public warnings that could be useful for you. This is February 2019. And here FDA recommends that you flag this communication as urgent and include, let's say in the case of medical devices, medical device recall or correction. And FDA wants to ensure that you're accurately communicating with your customers about what exactly is going on. And FDA wants you to include some product identification similar to what it is that you would have provided to FDA above. They want a complete description of the product, any codes and catalog numbers, include a copy of the product label is sort of the best practice, and also include a description of the problem. So why is it that you're initiating the recall? Let your customer know that and identify what the potential health hazards are associated with the product that you're recalling. And they want to ensure that that statement is clear and directly conveys the risk and prompts an urgent response by the reader. And then FDA wants you to clearly communicate the depth of recall. And if the product could have been further distributed, then you should include instructions on the sub-recall. If your direct consignees are instructed to conduct sub-recalls, FDA suggests that you provide them with a date range that the recalled product was distributed, since they may need that information to identify the customers that they shipped or sold recalled product to. And they also recommend, FDA recommends providing a sub-recall letter with your communication package for your direct account consignees to further notify their sub-accounts. And these sub-recalls, they may take your letter and modify it with a new letterhead. They may attach a cover letter to your communication. This can happen in multiple ways. And then here in terms of instructions, FDA wants you to be clear about what it is that you're instructing your consignees to do, and they want to see a response card or form included. And FDA also recommends that you provide examples of all of your recall communications. And again, that would be applicable above for what it is that you're providing to FDA. And important here that all customers in the distribution chain should be notified of the recall. Again, preferably in writing. And here's why FDA believes that's important. So then how do we go ahead and evaluate the recall? So how do we confirm the effectiveness? So FDA first wants to reiterate that you should ensure that your recall is effective. Okay? And the purpose of an effectiveness check is to verify your recall communication was received by your consignees, by your either distributors or end users, and that they understood and followed the recall instructions. And the effectiveness check should also verify that your recall reached the appropriate level of the distribution chain. So they want you to track effectively whether those sub-recalls took place, if there were any. So how do we consider the effectiveness of the recall? How do we evaluate the recall? FDA wants you to ensure that your recall is effective and recommends that you consider effectiveness checks for every recall. And the purpose of the effectiveness check is to verify that that recall communication was received by your direct account consignee and that they understood and followed the recall instruction. So your effectiveness check is a means of evaluating the effectiveness of your recall. And if your effectiveness checks indicate that the recall communication was not received and or its instructions were not followed, then you should take steps to make the recall effective. These steps may involve using alternative means of contacting your customers or sending out a follow-up communication that better identifies the product, better explains the problems, and or provides better instructions to the consignees. So here FDA includes a note that in addition to reviewing the effectiveness checks conducted by a recalling firm, the FDA may also contact a percentage of the firm's customers as a means of assessing whether the recalling firm and its customers are carrying out the recall. So FDA is just letting you know they're not necessarily going to take your word for it. And then FDA wants to see status reports. Typically, this is on a monthly basis, but potentially more frequently when indicated. And the status report should usually include the following information: dates and method of customer notification, number of customers notified, number of customers that responded, quantity of recalled product returned or otherwise accounted for, the number of customers that did not respond, and an estimated time frame for completion of the recall, as well as details of your recall effectiveness checks. And best practice is generally to include some detail about the root cause of the problem that resulted in the recall, as well as the corrective and preventive actions to prevent future occurrence of the problem in each of these status reports. It probably doesn't change between status reports, but particularly early on, when some of this information is subject to change, FDA is going to want to see this, and I just typically make sure that it's included in every month's communication. And then we get to termination of the recall. So this is when your job is done. You've notified everybody who needs to be notified. All of the product has been returned or destroyed, and you're now looking to close out your market action. So FDA recommends that you evaluate your recall for termination when all possible customer responses have been received, and it is reasonable to assume that the product subject to the recall has been removed and proper disposition or correction has been made. And a final recall status report and documentation should be provided to FDA, after which they'll consider formal termination of the recall action. And here they identify 21 CFR. So that's right here. Section 7.55, termination of a recall. And here's the relevant detail. And then if we go back We see some further references here. And then also one final piece of information on recalls of FDA-regulated products. That would be here at this particular link. And there's some useful information that's provided, just basically a page of links that you can use. So I just want to go ahead and say thank you for joining me today. I really hope that it was useful information about product recalls. And I really hope that you took away these 3 key messages. 1, what recall information is submitted to FDA. 2, what recall information is sent to consignees. And 3, what information is used to evaluate the recall. So again, thank you very much for your time. Like, subscribe, please give me comments and feedback. It's very useful as I continue this new video series on FDA guidance documents. So thank you very much. You have a wonderful day.